Hi, and welcome to Tom Kennedy Science, and I'm your host, Dr. Tom Kennedy. Okay, this is part 3 of my series on sexual reproduction and inheritance. And what I want to talk about today is how does meiosis actually generate genetic diversity? And in case you're wondering, yes, I'm wearing a hat from Frozen with the sisters on it. I can't help it. I got a 3-year-old daughter. She loves the movie, like a lot of 3-year-old kids. They have this great song in there, Let It Go. But let's get back to meiosis here. Now, to be clear, mutations, that's a change in the sequence of your DNA. That is the ultimate source of genetic variation in life, right? Because a mutation creates a new allele, a new version of a gene. So if you've seen like pea flowers, you've got a purple flower and a white flower. So you have a gene for flower color. You've got 2 different alleles, purple and white. The white was caused by a mutation. Now, when we talk about sexual reproduction, it generates genetic diversity, not by creating new alleles, but by shuffling the alleles around into new combinations. Think about playing cards. You've got 52 cards in the deck. And every time you play a new hand, you get new cards. So your cards are like your alleles, right? You're just shuffling them around. And of course, you get some combinations that are losing. So if you get like a 2-7 split, that's not good. There's Beavis and Butthead, right? These guys are the equivalent of a 2-7 split. They're losers. And so we can get rid of all those alleles in one thing. And then if you're sitting on an ace, a king, a queen, a jack, a 10, all of spades, guess what? You're a winner. You're going to win. Like Albert Einstein had a winning combination of alleles that made him one of the most intelligent human beings that have ever lived. So that's what meiosis does, is it's reshuffling these alleles into new combinations. Now the key is, how does it do that? Well, we need to know a couple things about our genome. 1, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So we've got 46 total. What that means is you've got 23 chromosomes coming in from your mom, 23 from your dad. Now 22 of these are called homologous chromosomes. So we line them up 1 through 22, 1 being the largest, 22 being the smallest. And homologous chromosomes will have the same genes at the same location. So we all have the same genes. I know that's very confusing, I'm aware. But remember, we have different versions of those genes. Think of like a pea flower, purple and white. Those, you've got a gene for flower color. You've got the alleles, purple and white, which are the different versions of a gene. We've got blood type, A, B, and O. A, B, and O represent 3 different alleles for blood type. So if you're on chromosome number 6, you might have your gene for blood type in the same location, but you might get A blood from your mom and O blood from your dad. So you can get different combinations. And we have about 21,000 or so genes. So as you can imagine, many of those genes have different alleles. So almost no 2 humans on this planet have the same combination of alleles unless you're an identical twin. So here are the 3 ways that meiosis can generate genetic diversity. We've got crossing over, occurs in meiosis 1. Prophase, of course, is the first step of that. Random orientation of the chromosomes, also in meiosis 1. And then random fertilization. Now let's take a closer look here. Now remember, I was just saying that the location of a gene is called its loci, or its locus. So genes are located on specific locations on a chromosome. Now, if 2 genes are close together, they're often inherited together. And in fact, if genes are on the same chromosome, we'll often say that they're linked. But the closer they are together on the chromosome, the more linked they are. Now, why is that? And if they're close together, they're linked. Why? Well, first of all, you need to know that it takes place in prophase 1. Now remember, what we've done is we've replicated chromosome number 1. So we've got our chromosome with our sister chromatids. That's from dad. Chromosome 1 from mom, sister chromatids. And in prophase 1 of meiosis, they come together to form the tetrad. And it's in the tetrad that crossing over takes place. Now, what crossing over does, imagine I have an allele for O blood on my mom and an allele for B blood on my dad, and I switch them. I cut them out and I switch them. Now you've got one of your dad's chromosomes with O blood on it. The other one has B. So what we've done, and any gene that's next to that now has a new combination of alleles. So what crossing over is doing is changing up these linkages. Another way to think about this, our genes for hair color, eye color, skin color are often on the same. Many of those genes are located on the same chromosome near each other. They have to do with melanin production and its regulation. So that's why you often see somebody that's red hair with green eyes and freckly skin. But every now and then you see a redhead with brown eyes and dark skin. And that's a result of crossing over where the allele to produce dark skin switched to a chromosome that was producing the light skin and the green eyes. So that's kind of cool. So if you ever see a dark skin, dark-eyed redhead, you know what happened. Okay, now secondly, random orientation of the chromosomes. Your mom and your dad's chromosomes are homologous chromosomes. They carry the same genes, but different versions of those genes. So what happens is when they line up during metaphase 1, they can line up in different orientations. So imagine in a human the improbable event that all your dad's chromosomes lined up on one side and all your mom's chromosomes lined up on the other side. It's improbable, but it does happen about 1 out of 7 or 8 million times. And when you pull them apart, your daughter cells are going to have like all your dad's chromosomes, and the other one's going to have all your mom's chromosomes. Now, if I have one switch, you might get 22 chromosomes from dad and 1 from mom, and vice versa. So you can see that the random orientation of the chromosomes is very important for mixing up your combination of chromosomes from your mom and your dad. And here with just 2, you can see you've got gametes that are all from mom, all from dad, or chromosome 1 from mom, chromosome 2 from dad, and switched. Chromosome 2 from mom, chromosome 1 from dad. And what you've got is 4 different gametes now. So we can actually calculate the number of possible gametes. So if you got N equals the number of chromosome pairs, all right, so in our last example, we just had 2 pairs. Well, 2 to the 2 powers, 2 times 2, which is 4. And we saw that it had 4 different combinations. Chromosome 1 and 2 from mom, or chromosome 1 and 2 from dad, or chromosome 1 from mom, chromosome 2 from dad, or chromosome 1 from dad, chromosome 2 from mom. And that's 4 different possibilities. Now in humans, we have 23 chromosomes. That's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 23 times. 2 to the 23 power. That's 8,388,608 possible combinations of chromosomes in each one of your gametes from your mom and your dad. That's why siblings here look different from each other, because they're getting different combinations of those maternal and paternal chromosomes. So for instance, baldness here. Got that gene on one of my mom's chromosomes. My brother, he's not bald. He's only 4 years younger than me. Very little signs of hair loss. So, random orientation, ended up with bald hair. It could have also happened from crossing over. I wouldn't know unless we did a full genetic analysis, which I'm not going to do. Now, number 3, random fertilization. So think about this. You've got 2 parents. Each one of them has about 8.4 million potential combinations of chromosomes in each gamete. So to form a zygote, you multiply 8.4 million times 8.4 million, you have 70 trillion possible combinations. I know, isn't that crazy? What that would mean is that you would have to have like 70 trillion offspring before you had 2 with the same combination of maternal and paternal chromosomes in them. Wild, isn't it? Not going to happen. But sometimes you might see siblings that look very, very, very similar, and they may have a similar complement of chromosomes, and also they're all getting the same dominant one, so they would look similar. Now, in biology, things always aren't so clear cut. You get this, right? Maybe not so random fertilization. It turns out that the egg is not just sitting there passively. Oh no. And in fact, there's a whole field where people study the evolution of gametes. And they study them in like Drosophila, which is a fruit fly, and in sea urchins. They also study them in birds and in humans, of course. But interestingly, the egg actually releases chemicals that attract the sperm to it. So the sperm are detecting the chemicals and swimming to it. It's called chemotaxis. You remember long time ago before Uber, there were these things called taxis, and you would call one and 50 minutes later they might show up. Yeah. Well, anyway, taxi means to go to. Chemo means chemical. So chemotaxis is the sperm swim to the egg based on chemicals that it releases. And here's a good one. It's not necessarily the first sperm that gets there that fertilizes the egg. Apparently, the egg has some choice in which sperm can actually fertilize it. Crazy. It's amazing. And then lots of things happen once the egg becomes fertilized, including completion of meiosis too, and then it starts dividing by mitosis and grows into you, an adult, eventually. Okay, well, that's been my talk on how meiosis generates genetic diversity. I hope you enjoyed it. And then next up, we're going to go into inheritance, and we're going to learn about my heroes of inheritance and the fathers of modern genetics. And it's not Gregor Mendel. I like Gregor Mendel, but it's not Gregor Mendel. So stay tuned.